Hello, we're International Payments Summit 2013 in London on the first day, and with me is Maurice Cleaves of Barclays. Now Maurice, you've been chairing the first morning sessions. What themes have you seen emerge?
I think there were probably four areas that came up quite often. One was clearly around technology, one was around regulation. Those two subjects spawned other discussions around big data and also outsourcing.
Right.
So I think those were the main themes.
That's interesting, because regulation was the first thing you started off with, and that was on the schedule, as it were.
Yes.
So, and there were a couple of good issues around there about how that's affecting the industry and changing it.
Yeah, I think Dermot Turing from Clifford Chance mentioned that there are 4,511 pieces of regulation that impact on banks. And if you reflect on the numbers of people in the banking organisations that then have to deal with those, I asked him the question whether the banks were dealing well with it. And I think the theme that came through was many banks deal with it as a necessary evil. There aren't many who are looking at areas that they could actually benefit from the regulation. And actually, some of the regulation probably needs a little push or pushback. And I think the feeling was that some lobbying with politicians and with regulators as to the impact that was having, which with 4,511 pieces of different regulation, actually one could counterbalance something else, or actually one could be working in an opposite direction from something.
So the law of unintended consequences was going to come into play.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think the other interesting reflection that was that banks have put themselves into positions as special constables as a result. Because we banks have to police certain things like AML and KYC, which we're policing really on behalf of the regulators.
But he also phrased that as saying that was a good thing for banks to be doing, and they should educate the policymakers into understanding that this isn't casino banking, this isn't the scandalous stuff that's tainted the industry. This is the actual plumbing that serves society well. Absolutely.
I mean, the notion was that yes, regulation has to be done, but we shouldn't put regulation in replacement for trust. And actually, trust is where the banks should be, and actually they should be self-regulating in that environment.
And the other big area away from regulation, which is a given in our world, is technology, which we used to think changed really fast, but regulations change faster now. But there's still that technology churn going on.
Yeah, I think one of the panellists mentioned it quite well, in that where the technology plays is really on the client-facing piece. So we're trying to do a lot on the technology. We talked, and Mark Butenek from ING talked very much about turning from a spaghetti model into a lasagna, on the basis that we have very complex infrastructures, some of which are very old. And actually, to do some of the changes that we need in the payments environment to take advantage of new technologies is very difficult to do. Therefore, what you need to do is you need to layer your technical organisation so that you can take advantage of that technology.
And emerging from that with the two other issues, we saw big data is almost a fashionable marketing word nowadays, but it's a reality in payments.
Yeah, and I think there's a number of examples in different business models of the use or not of big data. And the real question under that is, at what point are you allowed to use that data? And at what point would you have to get a consumer to actually approve that you'd use the data? And actually, can you make money from it? Are there business models where you can actually make money from it? So it's very much, the contention was that use of data in the future is really where banks need to add value and make money, and the payment becomes the commodity. But I don't think there was broad agreement across all panellists on that.
That's interesting, because the other area where it was emerging in Brett King's presentation, it was about what you want to be within the ecosystem, and that's where the outsourcing argument started to emerge.
Yeah.
And there probably isn't complete agreement across everybody in that one either.
I think you're right. I mean, I think outsourcing means different things to different people, and it certainly did amongst the panellists. What was interesting actually was a few years ago you would have heard banks talking to them about themselves as either an outsourcer or an insourcer. And now it's very much a mixed model. For services that you do very well and others want to buy, you might be you might be an insourcer. But for other services that are not core to your banking model, you may outsource those. The real question is, how do you outsource those and actually keep control of the service and the responsibility and accountability to your client? And also, you can't outsource your regulatory responsibility either. So you need to retain certain elements to be able to provide for your client.
So plenty of challenges remaining then.
Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you very much, Maurice.
Thank you.